What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the Doubt and Devotion podcast. I'm your co-host, Billy G.
What's going on, guys? I'm Jared.
And today's topic is a spiritual one. We're going to be talking about the difference between spirituality and religion. And I find that this is a deep topic that I think a lot of people can relate to on many, many levels.
Yeah, I definitely feel like it will be relatable, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I'm going to find it interesting for myself because I'm going to learn some things about you and you know.
Yeah, I think one of the reasons why I think this topic is going to flow well is because I stem more on the spiritual side of things and Jared is on the more religious side of things. And I think at the end of the day, the mission is almost essentially the same, okay? But I think it's just the way the path is walked is a little bit different.
Yeah. And look, different people are going to have different perspectives, obviously.
For sure. And there's a bazillion ways to do it.
Yeah.
Okay. You know, we're just going to speak about our experience and maybe the experience I've seen of others.
Yeah. So for me, like my walk and my faith, whatever you want to call it, is still relatively new.
Right.
You know, like at the end of the day, I've only been going to church like I have been since 2023, like
Okay.
again, after the surgery. So
right. I mean, still, that's 3 years at this point.
Yeah,
That's pretty significant
consider
for anything in life.
Consider
you know?
to others, you know, you have
Yeah,
people that were brought up in a church,
Right.
some that lose their way
Right.
due to being brought up in a church.
True. Yeah, and we're going to touch on that stuff
Yeah.
because that, I think, bleeds off into other aspects like supposed atheism and agnostic. And like, you have people who were possibly born into a very strict religious upbringing. And then you have people who, you know, aren't really born into anything. Like I'll take myself, for example. I wasn't really born into anything. You know, my parents were very much of the idea of you'll figure it out. You know, when you're an adult, you'll figure it out. They never pushed anything on me, which I really respect at this point in my life. You know, I think that I definitely needed some sort of guidance in that regard. But you know what? I think that they didn't know either. You know, so I don't think they wanted to push something on me that they weren't 100% sure in themselves, and I respect that.
Yeah,
you know?
I look. I can only speak from experience, but I also did not grow up with any sort of pressure to go to church or anything like that.
Yeah,
and I would say I don't plan to pressure Luca either.
Yeah,
you know, like I bring him to church. He's
for
5,
sure.
So right now I bring him to church. He goes into the class. Sometimes he doesn't want to go, but most times he enjoys the class. They learn a little bit about the Bible, and they're still kids. Like they have a good time while they're doing it.
Yeah.
But I feel like it would do quite the opposite of what you want it to do if you are overbearing and you force them to.
That's with anything with kids, man. You know, it's almost like the way to get them to do something is to be very nonchalant about it.
Tell them not to do it.
Yeah. Unless it's like life threatening, like hey, don't run around the pool or some shit.
Yeah.
Don't cut the food that way with that knife. But you know, coaxing them gently towards an idea, I think is generally the best way to go about it.
Yeah. And I get to witness it now because I am part of the Freedom Group, right? So that's
what exactly is that?
So it's a 12-week curriculum, I guess you could call it, where you're going through a different chapter every single week. You meet once a week.
Okay.
It's
a different chapter in the Bible, to be clear.
No, not even.
Okay.
It's a curriculum that a guy named Chris Hodges, he's a pastor at a church, Highlands Church. I don't know. I forget where it is. I want to say Louisiana, if I'm not mistaken.
Okay.
And he created the curriculum. Okay. And the whole point of it is to do exactly what it sounds like. Is like, it's like peeling back the onion. Mm-hmm. There's layers to it.
Of course.
And each chapter you go through, it gets a little bit deeper.
Right.
To name a few, you got surrender, you got forgiveness, and it really uncovers a lot of things that you may not even be aware of.
Oh yeah.
Like,
for sure.
A lot of deep rooted traumas. Like that's what happened to me, like deep childhood trauma that was buried for 30 years.
And I think people don't realize those things motivate us way later in life subconsciously. You know, we do things in life and we become certain types of people because of those things that happen to us. You know?
Yeah.
Good or bad.
Whether you realize it or not.
For sure.
I super self-conscious, body dysmorphia, walled up, like super guarded.
Yep.
Don't talk much about my feelings unless I really, really trust you.
Yeah.
And that's all. You're 100% correct. It stems from there.
Yeah. It's you saying this, and it's so similar to the fourth step in Alcoholics Anonymous. So the fourth step in Alcoholics Anonymous was created, you're creating an inventory of yourself where we're kind of cataloging our personal defects, right? Or our character defects, excuse me. So we're kind of chronologically going over the people in our lives, what we feel that they did to us to make us so angry at them, because like every relationship in our life, there is a balance of resentment and love. Okay. That we resent some of the things they've done to us, and whether we, forgive them or not, we hold those things. Right. And the resentment is like, it's like a mold. And the more we keep it in the dark, the more it grows. Right. And the more it starts to fuel who we are, and it changes our relationship with that person. So the fourth step is mainly about viewing those resentments, right? So we write them down on paper. What part of did it affect? Did it affect my personal relationship, my sexual relationship, my pocketbook, which is your finances? And we view all these things. But at the end, you look at what's my role in this, okay? And that's where the turnaround comes. And that's when we start to view the resentment differently, because everything I resent, I played a role in, and I just don't realize it yet. I'm so focused on being angry at that person for this that I don't realize my part in it, right? And then, generally once people start to see their part in things, that resentment starts to ease. And you're like, oh, wow, you know what? Maybe I play a role in all the bad things in my life. And maybe it's not really anybody's fault that these things happen. If anything, maybe it's more my fault that a lot of these things happen. And you start to take personal responsibility instead.
Yeah. So that's very interesting. First of all, the main thing that happens is it absolutely shapes who you are. But then it, like you said, it starts to bleed into other aspects of your life.
Yes.
And that's exactly what was happening to me.
Yes.
But what I got from going through freedom, now my third time, I get a different thing out of it every single time I go through it, which is pretty crazy in itself.
Yes, the steps are the same way.
But the main thing is like the perspective shift, right? Understanding, like you said, understanding what happened to you, why it happened, how you played a role. But the main thing that I got from it was a shift in perspective, understanding why that was done to me, and maybe understanding what they were going through also.
Right.
And you don't realize that the part of you that is like angry and bitter and holding all that resentment is the little you, the inner you, like the smaller child that was hurt in that trauma.
Yes.
So that it really can turn into more of a weight on yourself than anybody else.
Oh, for sure. All those people that you're mad at and resentful at, they have no clue.
Most times they don't.
Mostly they have no clue what you're harboring, and like letting these things go, I think, is the key to finding true happiness. And I find it interesting that you're like I mentioned in the beginning, it's the same end goal with kind of two different paths to get there, right? And to be clear, you're speaking of a Christian religion, okay?
Yes.
Because we could look at this in many different lights, because religion covers a vast amount of different faiths that do different things and believe different things. Like you have Catholicism, you have being a Muslim, you have Buddhism. There are so many different religions, and then you have the other side where people claim to be a bit more spiritual, like for myself, right? So one of the things that I really enjoyed about when I became a spiritual person, through Alcoholics Anonymous, was they told me that there were no rules, right? They told me that I didn't have to believe in any sort of deity. I didn't have to believe in this box of what this is. I'm allowed to kind of pick what I want, as long as I can accept the fact that whatever it is bigger, better, and badder than me, right? It's removing the ego, okay? It's removing my importance from my own life, right? So I think that spirituality starts to encompass maybe a wider umbrella, because it allows a little more freedom and to be a bit more relaxed.
Yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
And I think that's what's discouraging to a lot of people is they look at religion and they see the structure, and it's
Yes.
discouraging.
Yeah, and it's almost there's a fear placed on it,
Yeah.
because let's be real. There's a stigma placed
Yes.
behind religion. I
Yes.
mean, you see people and you kind of roll their eyes, like, oh God, here we go. God bless them, the Mormon guys who knock on your door. I mean, those guys, dude, they are dead serious about what
Yes.
they believe. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And like, God bless them. If that's what makes you happy, dude, go do your thing. But the rest of the world's kind of like, oh God, here we go. So, it's like the preconceived notions that exist toward religion, I think, ends up pushing a lot of people.
Yeah, it's a turn off to a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Yeah. So the structure, and then like you said, the stigma that I think God for a lot of people is viewed as this big angry guy in the sky.
For sure. And for me, that's exactly what it was.
That's what it was for me for a long time.
Because my grandmother lived with me growing up, my dad's mom, and I'll never forget this, man. Like, I remember walking into her room and she had this Mother Mary statue and it had like the snake beneath her feet. You know what I mean? Like, I guess that's supposed to be like the devil or something. I don't know.
Serpent.
And she was just very like, God is watching. You know what I mean? And she made me feel like, and this is no slight towards her, she didn't know any better, right? But she made me feel like every move I was making was being watched and judged, and like that immediately was very off-putting to me. I didn't like that idea.
Yeah, that's another thing, is like a lot of people, they think that if they do any wrong, that you're just screwed. You're just dead to God.
Yeah, you're screwed.
And I feel like they don't really believe in repentance and understanding that he does forgive. Now I do think there's a fine line. Like, if you're a repeat offender, and the way I look at it is, God knows what's really in your heart, right? Meaning, like, if you genuinely want to stop doing the bad, and you're making an effort to stop doing the bad, that's different than you just saying you want to stop doing the bad, but there's no effort. And again, he knows what's on the inside. Yeah. So that's what I had to come to the realization of, is it's not what a lot of people perceive it as. And I get it. Like, it's pushed on you. It's what you hear. It's what's shown to you. So that's what you think it is.
Correct. Yeah. I think even through like movies and shows, cinematography and such, it paints this picture, and for better or for worse, people will either gravitate toward that or they violently push away from it, because then you have people who are very anti-religion, right? But they still have some sort of belief in something greater than themselves. But I think one of the issues with religion too is, like, because that there is this box that you kind of need to fit in, some people may feel like, I can't coexist with the people in this box because I feel very different from them.
Yes.
And like, because I don't believe what you believe 1000%, that
you're
therefore
not accepted.
I'm not welcomed.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. No, again, I understand that, because that's how I felt for a very long time.
Yeah.
But I will say this, that every church, every pastor is different.
Right.
And some churches operate in a completely different way.
For sure. And some of them are real strict, dude.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Let's not beat around the bush. I mean, there are some religions that are really strict with how you live your personal life.
Catholicism is really big on
Even
you want to talk
the
about
Amish,
structure.
I mean, the Amish too, man. I mean, they are very religious people who really care about how you live every moment of your life.
That's one thing I still don't understand is if you claim to let's say be in the same boat, why are you picking apart the religion that doesn't directly fit your religion? You know what I mean? Like, you got
your beliefs.
Yes, some Catholics will view Christianity and say it's not
legit,
not real religion. Like that. Some, not all.
Yeah.
But again, I get to witness it in this group. There's a lot of people that grew up in Catholicism.
Yeah.
And they were forced into it. That it was so structured and, from what they tell me, like repetitive almost. Like you know what you're expecting.
Yeah.
And that I feel like is what, for me, really clicked when I walked into my church. Shout out to Coastal. Mm-hmm. There was a different topic on a weekly basis that he found a way to apply it to life. Right now he's talking about anxiety.
Yeah.
which for me is like fantastic.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, but I do get the other side. I don't want it to seem like I don't. What I'm saying that confuses me is, why would you pick apart the other religion just because it doesn't follow your beliefs to a T? That's where
Yeah,
I get confused.
for sure. But I think that's the tribalism of human nature. I mean, you have people who literally fight over colors, you know,
Yeah.
because I represent the red guys, I'm better, and I represent the blue guys, I'm better. It's just, you know what I mean? I think that's this part of who we are as a civilization. You know, we have that tribalism kind of installed in us, where if it's like, if you're not kind of doing things exactly how I think you should be doing it, then you're dumb. Which I hate that. I hate tribalism so, so much. I hate the thought that we are willing to separate ourselves based on such menial, dumb things. Now, granted, people take religion and faith very, very seriously. It is their entire life. So
Yeah.
to them, it is very important that everybody believes what I believe, because if you don't, then you're not going to be saved at the end. You know, that is what they believe.
Yeah.
What they believe in their
It's
heart of
ingrained
hearts.
in
So
them.
I think sometimes it maybe comes from a good place, but I think maybe at the same time they end up kind of shooting themselves in the foot with the mission they're trying to accomplish. You know what I mean?
Yeah. One thing for me, that when I was in the spiritual realm, I guess you could say, like when I was not into the religion side of things, I noticed that like I felt at peace in a way, but I still felt so lost. And we talked about this a little in the other episode, where I just felt like something was missing still.
Yeah,
You know, so that's what really I feel like caused me to seek it more,
for sure.
was trying to fill that void.
For sure.
You know, and I feel like I'm on the right path. Again, I'm still new in this walk, so I don't claim to I'm far from perfect, obviously. In my opinion, no one is, obviously. And that's why you have to repent and try to do better. But I'm so much better than I was, you know, and it's only been a couple years.
At the end of the day, I think that's what matters.
Agreed.
Right? I think it's a personal journey for everybody. And I just wish maybe, I don't know, I guess I wish people had a little more respect for the personal journey aspect of it. You know?
Agreed.
You know, there are plenty of people who, like I said, man, that tribalism kicks in. It's just my way or the highway type stuff. And it's like, you know, dang, dude, like what a way to completely go against all the principles you claim to be.
Yeah,
you know what I
agreed.
mean?
Yeah.
You know, like that kind of stuff always pushed me away. So I think conversely, that's why spirituality seems so attractive to me, because I didn't have to have this preconceived notion of this old idea of what I thought God was. Right?
Yeah.
And look, I preface it. I call it God because I don't know what else to call it. Okay. For me, that word just represents the universe, or the things that bind us together. I can't even really put my fingers on what I mean when I say that. I just know that there's something bigger out there that is way, way better than me, you know, that is here for, you know, it puts me here for a reason. Because I think too that a lot of people go through life saying that they're like, oh, I'm atheist, right? And then usually it's a lot of people who are people who come from religious upbringings who then deny it later on in life because of whatever reason, right? But I think that's a big fallacy. I don't believe anybody is truly atheist. The fact that you're even acknowledging that there is a God to deny means you're actually not atheist.
It makes sense.
Okay. Atheism is truly believing that there is nothing, we are nothing, there is meaning to nothing. And not only is that a horribly pessimistic view on life, it also completely defies everything we are as a human being. So for example, why don't you just walk out in the middle of traffic? Why? Because there's an innate fear of losing this precious gift that you have called life. And we don't really know what's on the other side, right? If you were truly atheist, okay, and you truly believed that life was meaningless,
Fear
you wouldn't care.
Yeah.
You would just step out in front of the car.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think what people truly are is agnostic, okay? It means with doubt. And I think basically everybody who doesn't fall in some sort of spiritual or religious column ends up falling in this agnostic column where they're unsure. You know, I don't know where to start. Does this God person even like me? You know, like, should I like him? How do I talk to him? How do I even go about, what are the principles of it? There's so many questions, that insert religion that has all the rules,
Yeah.
and it gives them something to follow. And then therefore you have somebody who feels much more secure in what they're doing. Kind of like exactly your story.
Yeah. I feel like, again, that it's super discouraging to feel like you have to check boxes off a list in order to almost qualify.
Correct. Yes, exactly.
And that's the issue. Again, I could relate to this a ton.
Yeah.
It's a couple years ago.
Yeah.
So it's discouraging and it's confusing, and even like what people not understanding how to talk to God, I think we overcomplicate it. When it comes down to praying, and I'm still sometimes, like, I get awkward if I praying for the group and stuff like that. I overthink it.
Right.
And meanwhile, it's literally, you're just having a conversation.
Right.
And we think it has to be, this old English style of praying to God that's straight out of the Bible, and it's just not what it is.
Right.
And then I feel that people get really discouraged when they try to pray and they don't get that prayer answered as quick as they want it.
Oh, buddy, I got my own story for that one. Okay. I mean, like, look, I used to pray every morning, every night, right? And this is kind of what they taught me in Alcoholics Anonymous. They were like, look, in the morning, we do what was called like the third step prayer. You could put it in your own words. It was written in very ye old English in the book, okay? But they're like, look, make it modern, make it your own, okay? And I made it just a couple sentences. It was like, hey, man, just like help me not pick up a drink or a drug today. Like, please, okay? Yeah. That's like my main mission today, is not pick up a drink or a drug. And just like keep my family safe. Could you do that for me? Right. And then at night, if I didn't pick up a drink or a drug that day and the family was safe, I'd be like, thanks, dude. Appreciate it. Boom, go to bed. And then, a very life-changing event happened for me. It's been exactly 3 years. Just a couple days ago, my wife, Samantha, was involved in a car accident, and unfortunately she died. And in that moment, I remember feeling betrayed. I remember feeling lied to. I remember feeling lost. Like, why did this happen when all I asked for was to just help me not pick up a drink or a drug a day at a time and kind of just watch over my family. And like, you couldn't hold up your end of the bargain on that one. That was my thinking. And granted, I've matured since then, okay? But I got to tell you, man, it really put a dent in my faith. It did. Hardcore. I really took a step back and was like, man, maybe I was wrong about all this. Maybe there is nothing, and it really stepped me back, because to be faced with your own mortality like that is jarring. Okay. To have someone that close to you, someone I literally slept next to, someone who we literally shared life with, to just be gone at that age is very heartbreaking, and it's very
confusing.
Very confusing.
Yeah.
Yes. And it's like, where do I even stand now? What do I really even believe in anymore at this point? What happens to me? Where is she right now? I'd ask myself all these questions, that I didn't have answers to. It was very frustrating to not have the answers, right? And I find that, that these things happen to a lot of people, man. Yes. I found out that I'm not unique, and for a while I felt very unique. And because look, it was difficult to find another widowed man in his mid-30s. It was pretty difficult to find other guys. Yeah. It wasn't as hard to find other women. Okay. I found a lot of widows who were anywhere from their late 20s to early 60s, right? A lot of them reached out to me, talked to me, kind of coached me through things. I think I found one other guy. His name is Eric. Shout out to Eric. Hope you watch this, man. And his wife died of terminal cancer, his first wife. And he, kind of gave me the heads up on what my first year was going to be like. And he was right. He was right about everything. So, it was just a very difficult situation for me to navigate, not only as a human being, but as a spiritual being, because it really made me question everything I thought I knew.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. Look, things like that are very tough to understand.
Yeah.
And when you're going through things like that, it's very hard to see any positive,
Right.
right? Like,
Yeah.
how do you find a positive in a
Yeah. It's almost
scenario like that,
not happening. Yeah.
right? But to give an example of one that causes confusion for me is my dad is currently dealing with liver cancer.
Yeah.
And that's something that's very easy for you to get confused and ask yourself why and try to make sense of it, but it could be
Yeah.
very difficult to do,
Yeah.
right? And not to say I found a positive, but I will say this, like it's caused my family to unite,
Yes.
and
Yes.
we've gotten much closer. My mom, they've been divorced since I don't even know, 4 or 5 years old.
Mhm.
And she is heavily involved setting appointments and taking to him appointments in Miami. And it just forced us to come together
Yes.
and make us closer.
Yes.
Do I want it to be cancer that caused that? Absolutely not. But what I'm saying is there is a reason most times, at least most times, I'm struggling with your scenario. Right?
Look,
I'm struggling
struggle with it too.
again because you are going to be angry and confused. But
Yeah.
we have to think about outside factors too. You know, like there's things that we have to hold up our end of the bargain as well. You know,
Yeah.
like there's scenarios where we made decisions to put ourselves in those scenarios. On my dad's case, we don't really know. I'll be honest. We
Yeah,
don't know.
for sure.
We think it was caused from something a long time ago when he worked at Publix, but we have no idea.
Yeah.
And it's confusing.
Yeah.
And I don't think anyone could have an answer for that. I had something recently where we were sharing in the group last week, actually, and I'm not going to divulge too much information, but it was deep rooted childhood trauma, and it was ongoing. And he was just basically like, I'm mad at God. I'm angry with God.
Yeah.
Exactly like what you're saying.
Yeah.
And he was confused as to why he wasn't there. Why wasn't he there?
Yeah.
And again, I don't have the answer to that. I have no idea. I don't know all the factors. I don't know everything that was going on, but I could absolutely immediately relate to that feeling because what else do you feel?
I know.
What else do you feel in that scenario?
I know.
But someone really shifted my perspective too when we're talking about praying and expecting things to happen for us. It's like there's a lot of people in this world. There's a lot of people in this world, and there's a lot of people that are praying and asking for things. And sometimes, like we brought up a scenario. We have a UFC fighter in our group. Shout out to Grant. And someone said it in a way where it's like the other fighter is most likely praying to God too. And
right. So who does he listen to?
I never thought
who does he
about
grant? Yeah.
He doesn't have favorites,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So what does he do in that scenario? Make you both knock each other out, get a draw? Like what?
Yeah.
I haven't thought about it from that perspective.
Yeah. No, that's a very
It's a
solid,
simple way of
it's a
putting
very
it.
solid point. Yeah, for sure. And I think too that, God gives free will, right?
Yes.
Right. I mean, it's not like there's a puppet master controlling our every move. And at least I know the situation that went on with me, there was very much free will going on there, and, the situation with your dad, first off, your dad looks great. The last time I saw him, I thought he looked great. So I hope he makes a full recovery. Because your dad's a great guy. But I don't know. I struggle sometimes with this is the feedback I seem to get a lot, that I'm being put through some sort of test, right? That I'm being
Molded.
yeah, like, oh, this is making you stronger, right? And like, look, in a way, that situation made me more resilient. Okay, I will say that.
Absolutely. Yeah.
It definitely made me more resilient. But it made me a bit more paranoid too about life. It made me a bit uneasy about very little things. Like I have these weird PTSD, like flashbacks, to that night. And what if something happens to, Charlotte or Laura at this point? I mean, God, man, I lose 2 wives, bro. I'm never getting married.
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I'm never even dating again because I'm cursed.
Yeah.
So it's like, I don't know. It's difficult, like you said, for me to find
It is.
the good in that situation. It really is. And, I got some questions when I get to wherever I'm going.
Yeah. Look, having questions is fine.
Yeah.
And I think that's another thing that people don't realize is having confusion and having questions, even when you're in religion, is normal.
Yeah.
It's human nature.
Well, I think the thing is too, people on the outside look at religious people and sometimes look at them like they got it all figured out.
That's my point.
You know what I mean? Like, oh man, like they're just happy Christian couple and they got 2 cars in the driveway and their kids are all smiling. And,
Furthest thing from the truth.
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I know that.
And I made that mistake with putting my previous pastor. I think I talked about this, but long time ago, I tried to get into the church and start going down that path early on when I was like 18, 19 years old. And my issue was I got church hurt, but I didn't realize that I was putting the pastor on a pedestal. At the end of the day, they're humans.
They're just another dude.
They're humans.
Yeah, they're just another dude.
So it was my mistake to think that they're anything other than that. You know?
Because I think at the end of the day, we're all just trying to understand what we're doing here.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
We're all just trying to understand, like, what is life really about?
Have a deeper understanding of what this is.
What? Yeah. It's a strange, life is a strange thing.
It is.
It's a super strange thing. You know, it's almost like right when you think you have something figured out, no, you don't.
Yeah.
No, you don't.
So to go back on the building or molding you, if you will, I could relate to that, right? Yeah. Like when I was going through the surgeries and I got a fungus on my spine and I'm going through the worst pain you could possibly imagine.
I was there. Terrible.
Yeah.
Terrible. I felt so bad for you, man.
I was very confused and I had a ton of questions too.
Yeah.
You know, and it took me a while to realize that I genuinely believe that's what he was doing. Was first of all, I was already going down a dark path with the painkillers to avoid the pain before the surgery.
Right.
Like it wasn't as bad as I got.
For sure.
Don't get me wrong.
But you were still
I was doing it
taking actions to
more than I wanted.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
Like when the pain was unbearable, I was taking them. And, you know, I think if anything, I could have stayed on that path, continued to have that agonizing pain, never get the surgeries. I could have done all that. Sure. But ultimately all of this led me to God. And it did build me up. It made me stronger. It made me, like you said, more resilient and just able to deal with things in a different way.
See, my issue with it in my situation and with your situation, I can see that.
Yeah,
I can. But my first question is, well, what about Samantha?
Yeah.
Okay. So yes, let's say it was a situation to mold me, right? What about her?
Yeah.
Was it all in the plan for her to die at 33? What about her? You know, what was her lesson in this? You know, I feel like the sentiment is different when there's another person involved. You know, like when it's a sickness or a struggle like that where you're suffering a personal thing that doesn't involve another person. You're like, okay, I could see the lesson in it, but I immediately just go to, well, how is that fair to Samantha?
Yeah,
you know, that's not fair to her. She's gone, dude, gone forever. You know, and what, to teach me something? So, you know, I found it really difficult to vibe with that.
Yeah.
Right. The only real positive I can maybe kind of pull out of the situation, you mentioned that it brought your family closer together. It absolutely brought my family closer together too. And it brought me and Charlotte like this.
I've witnessed you do a complete 180.
Yes.
And I know that you're kind of forced into it almost, but I see it.
Yeah.
You know, and your relationship's gotten better. You as a father have gotten better.
For sure.
Stronger.
Yeah.
It's undeniable.
Yeah, I agree. Because Charlotte was super connected to Sam the first, 3 years of her life. They were inseparable. Okay. And I remember feeling very jealous of that. I remember feeling like, dang, dude, like I do all this, my own kid don't even like me. You know, she would.
I could relate.
Yeah, because and Charlotte was a tough baby, dude. Really tough. She put me and Samantha through a lot on so many levels. But now that I look at it, I'm so glad that it was that way because she got those 3.5 years.
Yeah.
You know, she got to feel what I have now for those 3.5 years.
All the good from Charlotte.
Yes, yes. And I have Charlotte for the rest of my life, really.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And you know, the relationship I have with Charlotte now is, you know, it's unbelievable.
Yeah.
You know, it's like she's so much like me and she's so much like Samantha at the same time. It's so weird. She's got a serious side to her that's very much like me
Mm-hmm.
and emotional and gets upset. Like that's exactly how I was as a kid. And then she has the carefree
Free spirit.
dance side to her.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's so wild, you know. So like I said, the only positive I could pull out of it is at the end of the day, you know, I'm her everything and she's my everything. And that dynamic wouldn't exist had that horrendous thing never happened,
Yeah.
you know?
Do you feel that the shift, like what was the main thing that caused the shift? I understand the tragedy. I get that.
Right.
But was it you just just feeling like you had no choice but to step up? Is that what it
Yes.
is?
Yeah. I mean, look, I was a pretty involved dad before.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
It
why I
wasn't,
asked. Like,
wasn't
what
like I
was
was this guy who sat on the couch. Like I had my days with her. You know, we would alternate picking her up from school. I made her dinners and stuff. Like I was very involved. But I think once that happened, I felt this strong pressure to get moving. You know, where and some people may have taken that the wrong way when it happened, and because everybody handles these grieving and horrible situations differently. But I felt a strong sense of I need to move forward and I need to be the most capable, able, present parent that I could be for this kid, for her to have any shot in life at this
Yeah.
point. I remember Samantha died on a Thursday. And on Friday, I remember giving her a bath. Bath time was always Samantha's thing, okay? Because that's what the kid wanted. It's what Charlotte wanted.
Mhm.
It wasn't like I didn't want to. And I remember sitting there at the edge of the bath and looking at her, and she looked at me, and I was like, "It's just me and you now." You know, I remember telling her that. I was like, "It's just me and you now, man." And I remember like doing her hair, and it was awkward at first, just being me and her. It was really weird. It was really weird. The dynamic was weird. It wasn't like we were strangers or anything, but like we had always had that third wheel. We had always had Samantha, you know, and
Yeah.
like then it was just me and her. And it was like, I don't know, it was very strange, you know. And then we moved in with you guys, and like you guys helped a lot ease the burden. You know, your Daniela helped a lot, and especially in the very beginning, ease that burden from me because there was another female presence who could kind of come in a little bit.
Mm.
But over time, it just kind of shifted into this. It's just me and you, kid. You know, it shifted into that mindset for me and her. And granted, you know, we have Laura, we have Mackenzie, we have this big family, right? But I do still believe at the end of the day, you know, like she looks at me and she's like, "You're it," you know, and I
Yeah.
look at her and I'm like, "You're it,"
Yeah.
you know. And I know Laura feels that way about her daughter, and her daughter feels that way about her. It's just that's just the way it is, you know. And I don't know, I just felt this strong conviction to step up.
I'm struggling because I'm getting emotional, to be
Yeah.
honest. So I want to ask, like, what was the hardest part outside of the obvious, right? The obvious tragedy and having to pick up the pieces and
Yeah.
fill that void and all that stuff we just discussed. Was it all the opinions of the outsiders that were making judgment of how you were handling this? Like, I'm assuming that had to be.
Oh, that was one of the worst parts. Look, man, most people, if not, no, let me correct myself. All people who have not been in that situation have absolutely no idea what it's like to be sitting in those shoes. Okay. You may think you know, you may think, well, that's what I would do if I was it happened to me. No. The truth is you don't know until you're staring at that urn or until the funeral director is asking you, should they put a pillow in the coffin before they cremate it? When they're asking you things like that, and you have the police calling you and the medical examiner calling you, asking to donate her corneas because it might save someone's vision, okay? You have no clue what that is like unless you have walked that path. And I promised Jared I would not curse in this episode, but fuck those people who looked at me and did this to me while I was just trying to pick up the pieces of my life and not be alone and not be miserable. You know, I was just literally every day was a struggle to not just say, fuck my life. Truly, it really was. And then those would be the only two curse words I say moving forward. But like, man, it was just absolutely horrible to think that people that I know were putting me in group chats and like talking about my
Mm.
situation while I'm dying on the inside. I'm doing everything I can to just wake up in the morning and exist. And I'm trying to find some semblance of happiness in my life and in the world. So, yeah, outside of the horrendous thing that happened itself, dealing with the fallout of trying to not be horribly miserable anymore was absolutely the worst part.
I had to ask because I can only imagine. Yeah, I know
Yeah,
that for me that would be a major frustration.
absolutely. Because you know what, man, it's like, and I get it that everybody's always gonna have an opinion about something.
And there are
Yeah,
a lot of them are also hurting too,
for
and
sure.
it's almost like
Absolutely.
misdirected
Absolutely,
pain.
absolutely. And when I say that, man, I'm not even directing it at the main players. Okay. And they know who they are.
Yeah,
You know who you
you
are.
already had that
If you're a
conversation, I
main
would
player.
assume.
Exactly. I'm talking about the people who didn't even know us,
Yeah,
bro.
just like
Yeah.
follow on
Yeah.
Instagram.
You don't know me or
Yeah,
her or my life or what it's like to wake up next to an empty bed, to throw her toothbrush away. Like, give me a break, bro. When you're in those shoes, then
come
you
talk
then
to me.
you can come
Yeah.
come give your opinion to me on what you would do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, typical human nature is to make those assumptions and
Yeah.
assume that you would do something a different way.
Yeah.
And again, you can only imagine, and you don't want to imagine.
You don't. No, you don't.
Y-
I
y-
wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy.
exactly.
Wouldn't wish it on my worst enemy. And that all ties back into the spirituality thing. You know what I mean? It rocked my faith, man. And I'm sure it rocked a lot of other people's faith too. In not having the answers for these things was devastating for me and for that aspect of my life.
Again, I can't even imagine,
Yeah.
especially when it comes down to the parenting side of it. It's like
Yeah.
it's super impressive that you're doing it.
Yeah.
You're not just doing it. You pulled it off.
Yeah.
Like you again.
Yeah.
I got to witness you do a complete 180, and it's
Yeah.
super impressive.
Yeah. I appreciate that.
Yeah,
Thank you.
even on the shift that it's caused in Charlotte.
Yeah.
Like you
She's
said,
a very
like,
different kid, man.
Yeah,
Very
and
different
again,
kid.
I get to witness it because she
Yeah.
lived with me when she was going through the worst time of her life, also.
Yes, correct.
And it's just like a whole. And she was always amazing. I love Charlotte.
No, but well, let's get
you-
real. She had her emotional outbursts and God putting in her bed. Do you remember that? Like
Yeah,
miserable, dude.
I
to
don't
get
even
miserable
want
to
to
get
get
her
on
to
that
eat.
topic.
It was just she was a rough kid. And you know what though? Now at this young child stage, whatever she was a rough toddler, I should say. Now at this young kid stage, she's amazing.
Yeah.
She's such a good kid, man. Like she does, dumb things here and there. She'll tell me little lies and then immediately apologize. And
Yeah.
she writes me like I'm sorry letters and shit.
Catches it quicker.
Yeah, she does. If I get mad at her, like she'll come up to me with like this face and she'll hand me this thing that's letters. It's like I'm so sorry and like little pictures of me and her hugging. It's just so cute.
She really is so cute. So I guess to get back on subject topic,
Yeah,
I guess like one thing I was thinking is everyone assumes they have the truth. Like everyone has their own version of the truth.
Yep.
Right. Which means if everyone has their own version of the truth, then do you really have the actual truth? Right. It's like, because the truth can't contradict itself. Right.
Yeah.
It either is or it isn't.
Yeah.
So it comes down to like, are we seeking the truth, or are we seeking what's comfortable to us?
Mhm.
Like you said, the main thing that you kind of feels, I don't know if you want to call it attractive, or why you stay agnostic, if you will, or spiritual, sorry.
Yeah.
Is the fact that you have the flexibility.
Yeah.
Right. Like the flexibility. It's the best way to put it, right? Do you think that is probably the most common reason as to why most people stay in that boat? Is the flexibility, the option, because it kind of is that way, right? If you don't want to, even if you didn't want to be spiritual that day, you know what I mean? Like you had that option. But when it comes down to religion, it's like you can't just turn it off or turn it on. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but and I would pose this question to you. If you believe you have the truth, does it really matter if you actually have the truth or not? If you believe it, if I believe I have the truth and
Good
it
point.
makes me happy and comfortable, and let's say that's not really what it is, but I believe that's what it is and it works for me, does it matter? Like I think we should all ask ourselves that question, because I feel like with the God topic, with the spirituality and religious topic, a lot of people get caught up in the no, I'm right. No, our way is the way, right?
Hmm.
But in reality, dude, like as long as that's your truth and it works for you and it makes you happy and content, isn't that what really
I don't
matters?
disagree with you. I don't disagree with you. But again, I think it depends on your beliefs, right?
Mhm.
So if you believe in heaven or hell, then
Mhm.
you're not gonna be so you're not gonna be so quick to say what you're saying, right? You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Because
That's probably
what
the spiritual person in me
that's what
speaking.
that's what I
The
mean.
flexible person in
So
me. Yeah.
that's the point. It's like
Yeah, yeah.
if you live your life that way, yeah, you'll be happy while you're here. But if you're wrong
Right.
and there is a heaven or a hell, then
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah.
So it's
Well,
something.
I think too, like the whole, like let's say coming from my point of view, the spirituality thing. I do believe in another place, right? I don't know if I necessarily would call it heaven or hell,
Mhm.
um, but I do believe that the quality of that place does highly depend on how you live your life here. So it's almost like the same concept, right? And I think
Similar,
that
yeah.
even if you lived your life as a genuinely good person, then I think you get good results at the
Yeah.
end. If you
Yeah.
live your life as a POS, then you get bad results at the
Agreed.
end.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just feel like relying on our feelings is our biggest mistake. Again, like to go back to the dark path that I was on, I would gravitate towards the things that made me feel good,
Mm.
right? Pills and kratom,
Yeah.
but they sure as hell weren't good for me,
Right.
And then it was like just this vicious cycle that kept repeating itself. And,
Yeah.
and and while you're in it and you feel good, but ultimately it's not doing me any good.
Yeah.
So once that shift happened for me and I was able to find my way to God and kind of fill that void that I was looking to fill, it's better for my health, better for even, yeah, I don't know if you notice it, but like a lot of people notice my complete shift in how I carry myself. And
Absolutely.
yeah,
I
I
notice.
don't,
Of course I do. But look, as your friend, I also knew there was a time to push the issue and a time not to push the issue.
yeah,
Like at the end of the day, dude, you're a grown ass man. And like you clearly got a lot together. So who was I to come over to you and
yeah,
be like, hey, dude, I think you should change your whole life?
yeah, yeah,
Like
yeah.
you kind of had to wait for you to come to your own conclusion on that, and I'm so glad you did, because there was a humongous difference in you. I think before you were a little more irritable,
Hmm.
cranky. You were red in the face a lot, sweating a lot, whereas now your skin is of a normal complexion. You're happier, I could just see it in you. There's something that happens when people get sober, man, and I can't describe it. There's a glow about them when they get
Yeah,
sober. And like you can't force that on anybody. You can't replicate it. You know what I mean? It's like you chose to make that choice. I'm so glad you did, because it's paid off for you in spades.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Obviously, not much to regret from getting sober.
Yeah, I've never met one person, not one person in my whole life that goes, dang, I wish I hadn't gotten sober. Not
Yeah.
one person.
Yeah, and look, obviously, I'm thankful too. But it is a journey. You know
It is.
that.
Oh no, look, it ain't an easy
Ain't done
path.
yet.
It ain't no, it's not. It ain't an easy path, but it's a well worth it one.
Yeah. So look, I guess to kind of wrap this up, like if you have something that works for you, I'm a big believer of like kind of what you're saying. Like if it makes you happy and that's what you believe, more power to you.
Yeah, if it's your truth,
More,
dude.
more power to you.
Good, great.
And I
Yeah.
always told myself like no matter how deep I get into religion, I never want to be that guy that is like overbearing and
Yes.
trying to like force people into it. That was
Yes.
always a major turnoff to
Oh, me
me.
too. I mean, you're literally achieving the exact opposite of what you're trying to achieve with
Exactly.
it.
So like
Yeah.
I definitely don't want to come off as that person that's judging or pushing people one way or the other. So this is more so just, and it's good for us too. Again, like obviously I learned some about you, you learned some about me, I'm sure, and at least on the faith and spiritual side of things. And I am glad we had this conversation.
Yeah, I am too. And I think it's an important conversation to be having, because I think spirituality, religion, the belief of something greater than us is something that binds all humans together. We all fundamentally have the idea of something greater than ourselves out there. Whether we choose to acknowledge it and run with it or find it or seek it is completely on the individual, but we are all innately born with the idea of something greater, you know? So that wraps up this episode. This is episode 3 now, right? We got a lot of good feedback on episode 1 and 2. Especially a couple of the clips on 2. We have one blowing up right now.
Killing it.
Yeah.
Just want to reiterate that 90s and 2000s were the best time to be alive.
Exactly. We should do a whole episode on like
we have
90s nostalgia stuff, man, because God, do I miss being in that era of life.
Agreed. Trust me. And it's cool to see the comments where they're like talking about some of that nostalgia.
Yes.
Talking about old video games,
yes,
stuff like that.
Kmart and stuff. Like, man, we could go deep on it.
It is crazy. Miss those days. Well, I appreciate you guys tuning in, and we'll see you next time.
Yes, please like, comment, share, subscribe.
Hit the
comment
bell.
Anything. Even if you hated us, just comment.
Yeah.
Even if you downvote us, do something. Take an action. I really don't care. Thanks for joining in. See you next time.
Peace, guys.